Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our Survival Minecraft series. When we left off last episode, I had some really big plans. And then we struck a little bit of some disaster. As you'll notice, my level count is significantly lower, and I lost all of my items in a caving incident because I didn't quite get back to the area of disaster fast enough. Now, I've been able to rebound and get a bunch of stuff realigned and put back together, but the fact of the matter is I'm missing a lot of things. And so though I hoped to be able to do a time lapse today, unfortunately that's not going to be the case because I've got to grind up all the materials all over again. That being said, I still got in a fair amount of work done. As you can see, we have dug out the basement of this house and we're making pretty good progress on the dripstone walls. I've got dripstone wall back in all behind the many different chests that we have here, and that's another thing that I'm really bad at, or I've been really bad at, is not being able to keep track of my items and store them in a good and consistent manner. So I force myself to build a bunch of chests, and I will have a chest designated to, well, at this point, all of the early game items. And that should go rather well. Now, I do still want to smooth out the ceiling a little bit, and I will probably do that with oak slabs, or oak plank slabs, as that will allow for a bit more of a uniform ceiling, and will probably leave a couple of spots exposed so we can hang the lanterns off of them, as I think that that's going to be our best option for lighting. I really like the way that this floor came together with the smooth basalt and the calcite, and that was one of the things that I did need to grind up pretty aggressively after the mishap that happened in between sessions. Let's see if we did. Unfortunately, looks like we didn't quite get another spruce sapling, and that's not particularly great because the nearest spruce saplings, or at least the ones that I found, are very far out in this direction as the sun sets over this horizon. Speaking of being able to zoom in and view things with Optifine, there's a really cool trick that you can do if you are using the spyglass. Now, a lot of people are probably aware of the fact that you can use the Optifine Zoom while using the spyglass, which is already pretty great. The problem that I have with this is the fact that the HUD occults a lot of the view from that spyglass. So if you hide the HUD by pressing F1, then use the spyglass, you actually get access to the entire field of view, and then you can further zoom in with the Optifine Zoom feature, which is really quite nice for spotting things from afar. Now let's get some rest in before talking things further. You'll also notice that my herd of cattle is a little bit thinner. I did have a mishap where a creeper made its way into the pen, and I messed up the attempt of taking care of the creeper, and he killed off a lot of my cattle stock. But that's fine. We've got plenty of wheat to the point where we can breed them back up if we want more of them, but I've got a considerable amount of leather on me for the time being as well, so that's quite nice. This dripstone farm, it's getting some decent work done, but it's still going pretty slow, so we'll have to see how we want to progress with that. We do have a decent amount of amethyst crystals, and that'll be good for making tinted glass for other projects that we'll want to do. But while I was out caving and looking for a couple of different things, I found something super awesome that I'd like to go ahead and have a look at right now, because this is going to be really good for us once we've been to the Nether and have the couple of resources that we need to finish this type of setup. I've actually gone the wrong way, not quite. It's up over the top instead of down that cave, which we've been exploring pretty extensively up to this point. So if we make our way down through this cave and then come down this way, you may recall that this is the area that we found that glow squid, and haven't had any of those guys spawn back in as of yet, but we continued down this way and lit up the caves pretty well to the point where nothing should be spawning in here. I know I can hear an Enderman walking around somewhere in the nearby vicinity, but I'm not as concerned about him as long as I don't look at him. But as you can see right here, we have a spawner, and it's not just any spawner, it is a skeleton spawner, which, how lucky is that we have a super awesome spawner right here within spitting distance of our base. I actually don't know exactly where we're at, but there's one way to find that out. So let's go ahead and we'll just dig up right here and figure out where it is that we ended up. And I'm just going to go ahead and place my cobblestone in my offhand so I can hop up this way and see where on the surface we end up. Might as well collect a little bit of this iron while we're right here next to it, because we've got plenty, but it never hurts to collect a little bit more, and hopefully I can have some fortune on me sooner rather than later that we can throw or take benefit from as we are continuing to work with that. Further and further up towards the top we go. That'll give us a good idea of where it is that we ended up. Okay, so it does appear that we are underwater. The question is, under what water? Oh, it's right in the middle of our little farm area. That is crazy, because that means that we can set up a farm basically right here. How cool would that be to have a system that sends the skeletons right up through the organic farm, and even maybe even set up a collection system right here to the point where we can work with them a little bit better, especially if we can build up high enough into the world where we can start collecting some powder snow and some cauldrons. I mean, that's going to give us access to a lot of really cool stuff, because as you know, or you may know, I've got that stray farm design that is really quite powerful. It's probably more powerful in a multi-server setting, but again, that's something that we're going to want to entertain a little bit more once we have gotten a lot more things, and particularly gotten over to the Nether, and we've got to find diamonds before we can do that, and I haven't had any luck in that endeavor as of yet. Now, while we wait for this spruce tree to continue to despawn, you may have noticed with my inventory that I have a couple of really interesting items here, because another thing that I haven't mentioned just yet is we trekked out into the desert that's just out over this way a little bit, and we did end up finding a temple, a desert temple, which had a lot of really good stuff in it. And the biggest finds from that trip, of course, are some diamond horse armor, a name tag, the cat music disc, a golden apple, and a saddle. And I thought that that was awesome that we got both a saddle and some horse armor out of that chest, because now we can find ourselves a horse, and that will make for some much easier adventuring if that's what we would like to do. So let's go ahead and do just that, and then we'll venture down into the mines one more time so we can get a little bit of redstone, because I would like to start keeping tabs on how this area is developing by, you know, making maps and the sort. And I don't think I need compasses for that specifically, but it will be a good little tool to use in order to keep track of what we're doing. And if we have a compass, then that will allow us to navigate a little bit more easily back to home as well. So I'll look into doing a little bit more of that just as soon as the rest of these leaves have finished despawning. So now that these leaves have despawned, let's go out and see if we can find ourselves a decent horse. Now, most people try to just go with the first one that they find, and that's all well and good for the early game, but we're gonna see if we can't find a horse that has primarily a decent speed and hopefully a good jump as well, because, I mean, being able to run places is well enough, but when it comes to traversing certain areas, it's sometimes better if you can find a horse that can jump decently high and a far distance as well. This guy's got a lot of health, so hopefully we can make friends with him pretty quickly and be able to test him out a little bit further. There we go. And let's go ahead and put these couple of things on him. He's actually pretty quick, which is really quite nice. And then let's see what his jump's like. I'm pretty sure that that is 2 blocks at best. Let's just run this quick little test by digging up these couple of blocks here. And then let's see if we can... Let's do this test here. Can he even get up? He can get up 2 blocks on a perfect jump. So not particularly great for the most ideal form of traversal, but he does have a lot of health and goes decently fast. So that is at least a point in our favor. And as we ride out here into this desert area, you can see over there in the distance where we have that desert temple that we raided and were able to collect a decent amount of goods from. I didn't showcase it specifically, but we also made out of here with a couple of enchanted books, though they were, I believe it was channeling and looting too, and I'm pretty sure there's a depth strider book down in there as well. So if we wanted to double back and grab that and any of the other loose change type items that we left down there, we certainly can, and we know exactly where to find it. But let's make our way up to the top of this little mountain area and get a decent survey of the surrounding area. It's highly unlikely that we'll have a second desert temple in here, or at least super close to each other. What is that over there, I wonder? Is that a swamp? It actually might be. Now, when it comes to making your way down a mountain on horseback a little bit safer, I like using the Legend of Zelda method or the sidestep to bring yourself down that way. I just find that that's a little bit more effective. And no, it's not a swamp, it's more of this savanna, which is fine. I mean, I don't love acacia wood. It has a couple of unique uses, but nothing that we really need to dwell on. But since we have had a wandering trader show up a couple of times, we've got some leads that we have stolen from him. I mean, that he has graciously given to us. And so we will at least be able to keep a little bit better track of our horse. I don't know that I want to spend the name tag on this guy because there are much better uses for name tags. But once we eventually get to the point where we are allowing ourselves to interact with villagers, then we'll be able to get more name tags at that point in time, because all it will take is a librarian that we trade up to master level, and they always have name tags. So it's not a huge point of concern of mine as to whether or not we can get more. It's just more of a matter of when. And here is that village that we saw in our first episode, and we are going to skirt right past it because, again, we are not going to interact with the villagers in the like 7 villages that are surrounding this area. There's actually another one just on the other side of this mountain as well. So we really have no shortage of villagers and villages that we can interact with when we get to that point. Just means that I have to be a little bit more tactful of how I approach that when that time does eventually come around. And I don't want to keep the horse too close to the cows, mainly because I've had a couple of mishaps with hostile mobs, and as long as he doesn't get himself into trouble, we can go ahead and leave him over this way, which is going to be a much better location for him. Eventually, I will have a pen, and I once upon a time built a really awesome pen that you can ride in and out of, but the horse can't escape on its own, so I'll probably revisit that at some point in time. because I really like the design concept of it. It's not my own design, but it is one that's worth revisiting and looking at a little bit more. I am going to start labeling these chests as I find a use for them. I'm going to try and put the things that I'll be using more frequently down on an easier accessible level, whereas things that I won't be using with as much frequency will be located up higher. And I'm trying to segment things off based off of like their resources and other things, such as coal and iron. Those things are used with a decent amount of conjunction one with the other. So storing them next to each other isn't the worst idea ever. We'll go ahead and dump the iron that I do have in my inventory down here. And with the oak and spruce that you see labeled here, and eventually the other wood types that I find a use for, I am going to store things a little bit differently, where I'll have the saplings all in here, as well as the logs and other log and plank variants in there as well. And I think that that will prove quite useful when it comes to tracking down the materials that I need, as well as not eating up too many storage chests, at least this early on. I may change that later on down the road. Alright, and that should be all the redstone we need for now. There's a lot of places down here where we know we can double back and find some more, and we will do that in the instances where we need more of it. But for now, we'll just go ahead and progress right back up. We've got ourselves an empty map here, and we're going to go ahead and start filling this in, well, once we've been able to sleep the night away. So that's going to be here in just a brief moment. Let's stand right in like the middle of the home plot and see how, well, that filled in basically the entirety of this map. So let's go ahead and make it just a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and hang her right here. Place that right there on the wall, and that'll give us a good indication of where we're at. I don't always like these little decals that show up on these maps, but it's fine. I mean, we'll just kind of have to take it in stride and deal with it. But as we continue to develop this area, things should pad out quite nicely as well. Well, again, unfortunately, because I had an untimely demise in between episodes, I'm a little bit further back than I would hope to be, but I've got a lot of bone meal on hand from the composter that we have, and we know exactly where a skeleton spawner is if we really need more of it. So in between episodes, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the majority of what my time is spent doing, growing up these trees so we can cut them down and get large amounts of wood to at least finish out a couple of these projects, ideally coating the bottom side of these floorings with some slabs so we can have a bit of more of a uniform ceiling around the basement while maintaining the textured floor that we have on the main floor here. And at some point we'll want to go ahead and start working on the upper layer as well, though again we won't have any balcony that comes out onto the front porch or this front area as well. So it'll all be a good, interesting experience for us. But that's going to do it for me today. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure that you leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe for that daily variety content. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye, everyone.